Hello and welcome to this edition of Man Cave Maintenance. Today we're going to have a look at a simple task of setting top dead center, or TDC, on a 2017 Honda CRF 450. It's a fairly simple task, but it's one that is not explained awfully well in other places on the internet or the manuals. So I'm going to try and explain it to you very simply with hopefully fairly good photography. This particular project is only a very small percentage of the overall project that I'm doing on the bike at the moment, which is to fit an electric start kit. It's quite an involved process and is going to take many hours. But it just occurred to me that actually setting the top dead center, because we'll need to remove the camshaft, is not an easily explained process, but is actually one that's quite simple to do. So you'll note that a lot of the peripherals have already been removed. So all of the side panels, the tank, the seat, the left-hand radiator has also been removed. And in this instance, to set top dead center, there's a couple of other things that we need to do. And I'll go through those with you now. So the first thing we need to do, once we've got down to this stage, is to remove the plug cap. That's simply a case of pulling it out and chucking it out of the way. Now we need to remove the rocker cover box as well, which is simply held in place by these two bolts. These are a 6mm Allen key. And once these are out, we can then store those safely and pull off the breather tube. Simply a case of clamping that, which you can do with your fingers, and pulling that off, and then gently easing out the rocker cover. Be mindful that there is a rubber rocker cover gasket underneath, which will come away with the, you can see the gasket here, which will come away with it, so just make sure that you don't damage that on the way out. So next we need to remove the spark plug. You'll need to use a special spark plug spanner. This particular one is a thin-walled one that will actually fit down that hole. Standard size sockets, even deep sockets, are too big for that diameter, so they won't fit. These spark plugs do have a very deep threaded socket, and they take quite a bit to get out, but they will come out. We need to remove the spark plug so we've got no compression, so we can turn the engine over quite easily and be able to get the timing marks quite easily. If the compression was in place, you'd never be able to do it. And there's the spark plug. You can see how deep it is. Be careful you don't damage the end, of course. And while you're at it, you might as well clean the plug and gap it as well. Next, we need to remove the crankshaft hole plug. This one here, located on the right-hand side of the engine, just to the front of the clutch cover. Bear in mind, I've already drained the oil out of this bike because this whole cover's got to come off eventually for this other project to fit in the electric start, but I just need to remove that plug to start with. Again, we store that carefully. So if we have a look inside the crankshaft hole, you need to make note of a couple of things. So first of all, the primary drive gear bolt is this one here. Now that's an 8mm Allen key, and an 8mm Allen key popped into that hole there will enable you to turn the crank in a clockwise direction. The other features are that we need to be mindful of is this little tab here, that's the index mark. And this T here, which lines up with the first one here, the first little mark, is the top dead center mark. So when T is lined up, T and that first notch is lined up with the index mark, we know we've got top dead center. Now, top dead center could either be on the compression stroke or the exhaust stroke. But what we find with when it comes all the way around, if it's on the exhaust stroke, which is not the one that we want, you'll find that there will be the cam being onto the springs pushing down the valves will actually make these marks here whiz past. You'll actually find it quite difficult to line these marks up when it's on the exhaust stroke. When it's on the compression stroke, none of the cams are pushing down the valves, therefore there's no springs involved, and you'll find that they will be quite nicely loose. So if we turn the engine in a clockwise direction, we will come to this resistance, which is with the springs, the valve springs. We'll keep turning in a clockwise direction. That will now whiz past in a second as it comes off the spring. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. See, it whizzed past again. I think it's actually gone past the marks until we get the timing marks back again. And it's simply a case of getting square on and lining up the T and the first mark with that index mark. When you can do so quite easily and go backwards and forwards without any spring either way, then you know you're on the compression stroke. So there's a couple of ways that we can confirm whether the top dead center we have is on the compression stroke. The first way is to have a look directly down onto the top of the engine and into the camshaft carrier, where you will see two holes. These holes reveal the cam lobes, and the cam lobes should be facing backwards. That is, the elongated portion of the cam lobe should be facing upwards and towards the back of the motorcycle. If you have a look at the timing chain end of the camshaft, you will note on either side at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock positions, there is two little marks. There are two little marks. Those marks need to line up with the junction of this carrier with this body. Now you'll see a line here, which is the divisional line, and you'll see that that lines up with that mark, and on the other side you can just about see that division lining up with that mark there. One final way that you can confirm that the top dead center you have is on the compression stroke is that this decompression weight here is in the upper position in relation to the center. So when it's in the exhaust stroke, the whole of this decompression weight is underneath. So when it's above, you know it's another confirmation that you're in the right place. So I hope this has been of some use to you. And if you've enjoyed the video, click the subscribe button. And on that basis, we'll see you next time on Man Cave Maintenance.